If you're looking for any plugins, presets, extensions to save you time and create awesome videos, my digital asset store is at the top of the description. What's going on, guys? Today we're talking about secrets for creating awesome 3D music videos. So to understand what we're trying to do, let's take a look at some great visuals that react with the audio. And keyword there, react with the audio. This entire video is going to be about the audio-visual relationship, translating the sound you hear into colors you see, motion you see, and other things along that line. So the first one here, this is a concert visual. And the thing I want to get across, it doesn't matter what genre you're doing, it's always going to keep the same core values for making everything react. Now, unfortunately, I can't play the audio with this visual because of copyright issues, but anytime you hear a bass strike, you're seeing this 3D visualizer slam on the ground. Anytime you hear some snares, you're seeing these lasers. They're relating different movements to different sounds. They're relating different flashing and different colors to different sounds. That's all about creating that audio visual relationship. And whenever you do that in a music video or a music video visualizer, you can create some really cool looking stuff. So another example, Edward Ov, we've talked about him a bunch on the channel. Again, I can't play the audio, but every time you hear a bass strike, you're seeing that flashing, you're seeing the flashing mouth, you're seeing different things happening that relate to the audio and bring that to life. So that should give you a good idea. I'm gonna leave a link to both of these below if you wanna check them out. We're gonna hop into Blender now, and I'm gonna show you some of the tools behind creating some of these looks. All right, guys, so here we are within Blender. I'm going to go ahead and just speed run a basic music visualizer setup. Of course, you can design it however you'd like. So I'm going to click Shift A. I'm going to add in a plane. And let's open up this here, and we're just going to give it a bit more size. We can tab into edit mode, right click and subdivide it. Give it some cuts like a grid. And then we can go to our modifiers and add in a wireframe modifier. So we have this little grid background. Give it some thickness and rotate it 90 degrees like that. So simple little background. I'm also going to bring in here just a simple little OBJ model that is from my 3D starter pack. So these are all basically like music video-esque 3D models. You don't need these. You can download things for free if you want. Just check out my other videos if you're interested in some designing tips for this. But again, extremely simple. You see this set up in a bunch of different dubstep style music videos where we have our background and we have some sort of subject like this. So some tips for making this sort of thing react to music. The first thing we can do, we can think about how we want this to react to the audio. Do we want it to rotate whenever the beat hits? Do we want it to jump up and down with scale? Do we want it to flash a certain color? So let's start simple. Let's just click over to our object properties, and we have our location, our rotation, our scale. So let's make the scale react with the audio. So I'm going to hover over the scale at the very beginning here, and I'm just going to click I on my keyboard. That will insert a keyframe. And if we switch from the timeline view to the graph editor, now you can see these lines here, and you see our X, Y, our X scale, our Y scale, and our Z scale. So if we don't have the keyframes there, and this is very important, we take that away, you'll see everything disappears from our graph editor. So if you're not seeing anything, it's because you don't have that starting keyframe for the value you're trying to link to the audio. So let's bring that back. You can hover over scale, click I, and it should keyframe all three of our scale values. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the standard way to link our audio. And that is by selecting one of these or all of them. Go to key, you wanna go up to bake sound to F curves. So this will convert any sound audio file that you have here into keyframes or curves, as you can see. So every time this goes up, it means the volume's getting more loud. Very simple way of having it react to the audio. Now that's the beginner method. This is our secret trick. So we've already talked about how to do this. Let's go a lot more in depth. So first of all, the only other thing you should know here, if you want to hear the audio while you're doing this, very important, so you can actually see how things are syncing up. Go to the video sequencer, go to the beginning, click add, and then you can load in your audio files straight from here as well. So now you can hear this is just some royalty-free music. Hopefully it doesn't echo from my mic. So we know the basics of linking some sort of value to audio. Now let's take it one step further. I'm gonna go ahead and right click and remove the keyframes off of our scale. So this will go back to normal. Let's try that exact same thing with color. So we're going to go and create a new material, and let's put it on the grid to start. So we'll go to our materials here. We'll create new, and I'm going to double click and name this audio reacting color. So click change from our timeline to our shader editor so we can take a look at this material. Now we want to keep this very simple. We don't need the principal BSDF. Let's just click Shift A and we're going to search for an emission. So an emission, we can connect that to surface. And then if we bump this up, we'll have some strength. And you're not seeing anything because we're just in the standard viewport shading. Let's change to rendered mode. And you can see this is how you get that nice glowing color. So we'll put that up to 100. You're not actually seeing any glow like this because you need to enable that in the render settings. So in render properties, bloom, there you go. So we're glowing. Now let's say we want to link this to the audio. We wanted to change the strength with the audio so that it'll flash with the song. We wanted to change colors with the audio. To be able to do that, first let's add in a little way to change colors. We're going to go in here, we're going to click Shift A, and we're going to add in a color ramp node. Probably one of the most important nodes in Blender, in my opinion. We're going to connect the color to the color of the emission, and now this will drive the color that we're going for. So what you can do here is you can choose the colors that you'd like to set for your visualizer. So say if the music's very quiet, you want it to be something like blue. We can change this to light blue. If you want it to be super loud, we can make it red. So whenever it starts out all calm and smooth, it's going to be very blue. In the middle, it's going to be this nice purple because it's blended between the two. And as it gets super crazy and bassy at your beat drops, it's going to flash red. And of course, you guys can add in other things here. Maybe you don't want purple to be your midpoint. Maybe you can add in like some rainbow colors and really customize this to your liking, but that's the basic principle of it. So once you have something like that set up, it's really just using those exact same steps to be able to link it up to the audio. So if we want to link audio to color, you want to keyframe the factor here. So hover over factor, click I at the start on keyframe 1, and now let's go to our graph editor. Now, if for any reason you're not seeing that, you may need to uncheck the only show selected. And now you can see this popping up. This is from what we selected in our shader node tree, and here is what we just set a keyframe for, the factor of our color ramp. And we can do the same thing. Key, bake sound to F curves. There we go. So it's very calm at the start. What we can do is let's give ourselves some more time here. We're just going to click that open to drag in a new window so we can see this at all times, make it a bit easier. Let's go to the parts of the song that start to get loud. Here's our beat drop. So pretty cool, and you have full control over what colors you'd like for different parts of the song. It's all being driven by this value here. You can think of this bottom line here as 0. Anything above 0 is going to affect the value. So the higher this line goes up on the graph, the more this factor is going to be bumped up. So you see right now it's at 0.18. If we go to where it's spiked up here, it's at 1.594. And that's in the range of our deeper colors here. But you can take this one step even further. What if you want things to flash in and out? And you can think of this like 0 and 1 values. So if we look at this graph here, again, if you think of this blue line here, this is 0. Everything above that is 1. So at all times, this line is above 0. So it's always going to be lit up and have color. But if you want things to flash with the song, you need to lower this line below 0 so that only the peaks are sticking up. And to do that, we use the envelope modifier. So let's get rid of all this craziness. We're going to right click, join areas. Here's our graph editor. Now, what you want to do is click N. It'll pop open this little side window, and you can go over to the modifiers, and we want to add in an envelope modifier. So this allows you to change around these lines. So we can click add control point right here at the very beginning. And now from here, you can take the reference. This essentially moves the entire thing up and down. You can take the min and the max, which I'm not going to confuse you guys at first. Let's just talk about reference. So add control point. I'm going to take the reference and just move it so that these peaks are sort of like this. So now instead of everything being above 0, it's going to sometimes dip to 0, sometimes go to 1. So you see this is 0, this is 1. Again, this is your bottom line. Now, right now, we're not controlling the actual glow value. We're still controlling just the factor of the color ramp. So nothing's happening right now. So we need to go back here. Let's go back to our shader editor. And this is only for controlling the flash. You see this is 0, 1, 0, 1. So this is controlling the flashing or the power, the strength of the emission. We're going to do the same thing. Just go to, on your timeline, the beginning. And then shader editor, hover over, click I to set your keyframe. So back in our graph editor, now you can see we have the emission strength. That's what we want to be working with. Let's sync it to the music. So key, bake sound to F curves, and load in our sound file. So let's do that exact same thing. Add in an envelope modifier, control point so we can move it, and then a reference. And there we go. Let's take a look at what it's given us. So we're starting to get that where it's sort of starting out at 0, completely blacked out, and it's bumping up and fading into the color. It's just not bright enough. Now there's two ways you could go about changing this. You guys can either change the min and max values here to kind of make these peaks larger, or an easier way is to just go back to the shader editor. And what we can do is just amplify this using something like a math node. So we'll take the strength here, just click and drag out a wire and search for math. And we're going to want to change this from add to multiply. So now essentially what it's going to do, it's going to take the beginning value here, which is what we're going to keyframe, and it's going to multiply it by whatever this value is here. So if this is our standard, we can set this to something like 10. And then we can do the same thing. We can click I to keyframe this value and link that up with our music. So back to our graph editor. Again, if you're not seeing that, uncheck here. And here it is. So here's the math value. Big sound F curves, load that in. So now you can see that things are a lot brighter as we go through. And even when we go in, add in the envelope like we did before, lower that reference so we get the flash. Now we can control the brightness at the maximum peak for this part. So if we just open up, so again, shader editor, if this isn't bright enough for you, just crank up that value, 25, whatever you want. And now, as you guys see, we have that flashing in and out that we're looking for. It really makes it come alive when it comes to reacting. Play it for you guys. And especially in the beat drops. Now you're going to see there's one issue here, and that is whenever it does get to those high values for the beat drop, it's going so far away from this line that it's no longer dipping in and out. And again, if it's not dipping below this blue line, this 0 line, it's not going to be flashing from 0 into 1. So again, this is below the line, so it's black. This is above, so it's colored. So it needs to always be dipping below and above that line. So if you want the parts with the beat drop, obviously it's louder. So all these are going to be up here. You need to do that same thing with the reference. And to do that without messing up anything you've done here, you need to add another envelope. So what we do is we take our first envelope, and you're going to see this restrict frame range. Check that on. We want this to stop right around here, 630. There we go. Now, whenever it comes to our beat drop, let's go ahead and just copy this and then paste it. And then we'll just change around the restrict frame rate. So we want this to start at 630 and then end wherever, maybe like around 1000 or 950. And then all you do is take the reference and you lower it. So pretty cool. I think that the flashing in and out just makes it feel a lot more alive. Again, here's the difference. This is without the flashing in and out. So that's just our color. This is with the flashing in and out. Again, you can control the strength multiplier there if you'd like. But yeah, that's your basics. So just keep going through different parts of the songs, adding in those envelopes with the restricted frame rates if you'd like to do that. You guys can take this audio reacting material here that we've just created and apply this to anything. So if you want the eyes to match up here, tab in edit mode, and I'll just select the eyes. So Control L, shift click, Control L, go to materials here. We'll create a new material and we'll just drop down, select audio reacting color, assign. There you go. You guys don't have to sync it up with the audio again. Ready just like that. So that's part one. I want to talk about some other cool things that you can do with the advanced baking. So this is our normal bake, key, bake sound, F curves. But there are some more options in here which allow you to do some very specific things which can really be awesome for music video visualizers. So let's talk about that. All right, so let's add in something new here. We're gonna go to File, Import. I'm gonna bring in another object from my music video pack. Same pack where I got this head bust. You can find that on my website if you're interested. Got a little tunnel piece. Again, something that's extremely simple that you guys can find on the internet, Turbo Squid, whatever. Now what I'm gonna do is just extend this tunnel, and we can do that very easily by going to our modifiers and adding in an array modifier. So right now it is going across the x-axis. This count is going to add in how many you'd like. So let's go and change this. We want it to go on the z-axis. Put z to -1, okay? And now we just need to get rid of this gapping. So we'll open up the constant offset and we'll just move over the z, and that looks fine. So now every time we bump up the count, it's going to keep extending out this tunnel. And also be aware here, the more you do this, the more computer intensive it is. 10 is fine, but if you're going for like 1000, things could get a little bit laggy, but this should work for us. Now, before we do anything crazy here, if you even want to use that tip we did with the eyes where we already have that audio reactive color, you can. So if I click tab, again, now that we have that material, we can now make any part of this tunnel react to the audio with color. So we can select any of these pipes, click Control L, click Control L. So once you've done that, materials, new, audio reacting, and assign. So our Y location here, that's moving towards our camera like this, we're gonna go ahead and keyframe that. So at the beginning, we'll click I on our Y location, and we'll do similar to what we did before. So graph editor, find what's selected here, which is our object transforms. Here's our Y location. Let's go key, bake sound, F curves. Now this time what we're gonna do is we're going to check on additive. And it says the amplitudes of the curve are summarized. So check that on. So we're gonna have a very different line here. Instead of going horizontally here, it's gonna be more of a vertical curve. And now as you see, because we linked this up with the Y location, the higher this value, the more the Y is gonna be pushed back. So pay attention to the Y right here. This is 16. And you see the louder the music is, the more it pushes it back. So if we go to where the beat drop is, you're gonna see this is gonna shove all the way back. Now right now it's going in the wrong direction. So let's add in an envelope, and we're gonna add a control point, and we're just gonna invert this. So instead of the minimum being -1, maximum being 1, we're gonna put this at 1 and this at -1. So now you see it's moving towards the camera, and you can control, if you'd like, the power of this. So how fast this is going to accelerate. And you can do that by taking this value on the right here. So this is our maximum, and just making that a lot more steep. So you see I'm controlling the steepness. We don't want this to pop back up like that. We want to control and make it a steep line. So now you guys are going to see it's moving a lot faster on the Y-axis because we cranked that up. And once we get to our beat drop, this is just going to fly past. Pretty cool. So what you guys can do from here, first off, you can do this to any other value. So if you want Y rotation, you can do that. Just make sure your origin is set correctly. That's the origin is where your rotate center point is going to be. So right now you can see our origin's right there, that little orange dot. We can go up to object, origin to geometry. Now that's more in the center. So we can test with our Y rotation, looking good. And you can do the exact same thing. So click I on your Y. Now you're going to see all those rotation values, and you can just key, bake sound F curves, keep the additive on. There you go. You can even copy and paste the modifier. So let's just click here, copy it and paste the envelope that we already worked on. And you can see a little bit too crazy with the maximum, but this is a good visualization of controlling the velocity with the audio. We don't want this to be 10. Let's maybe set this to 1. And if that's still too much, again, with spin and maybe you may want to downplay it so you don't get nauseated. But you see what I mean. We can link it to the spin. We can link it to the Y location. You can literally link it to anything. This is just basic location stuff, but you can link this to particle effects, physics effects, anything. So from here, you just make a camera, something like this. Again, save before you do mess around with this because it's going to be generating a lot of stuff. There you go. Once you're ready, you can apply this if you really want to, instance it, whatever. The base here, just some metallic, some reflections, and you can lower the roughness here if you really want to see those reflections of light. Now, the final thing I'd like to show you is frequency control. So let's go Shift A here and we'll add in an icosphere and let's move this over. So if you want this to only react to certain frequencies, for example, the bass of a song, which you guys can do. First of all, let's make this sort of like audio reactor visualizer-y by adding in some modifiers. So we're going to add in, first of all, a displace. And from the displace here, you can see the more you crank the value, the more this changes. And the shape that it changes is going to be dependent on this texture. So you can click New to create a new texture. We'll go to the texture tab here, texture properties, and then you can choose the type. So there's clouds, there's a bunch of different little presets here for the pattern. You can add a subdivision surface. You can apply these. You can add a wireframe if you want it to get all crazy, organic style. And then we do the same that we've been doing to sync it to the music. So we'll take the strength of our displace, click I to insert that keyframe, and you should now see it in your graph editor. Bake sound F curves. And this time we're going to take the highest frequency here. So usually this is maxed out. If you want it to be around the bassy range, you want to go 250 or under. So we'll click bake sound. And now at the beginning, when there's no hard bass, you shouldn't see this moving that much. So you see everything's reacting. There's still movement and velocity and everything else. So yeah, just some examples on how you can control audio, how you can transform audio into motion or audio into color or into light, flickering on and off. There's a ton of different things you guys can do. And when the whole name of the game is matching the visual to the audio, it doesn't matter if you're making dubstep, house music, or you see a ton of this stuff, or even a rap music video. Anytime you want to match the music with the visual, use these tools and you can create some really amazing looking effects that really match the vibe that you're going for. So that's about it, guys. The only bonus I would say is if there is a specific thing like a really big bass hit or any other specific part of the song, you can kind of make corresponding camera movements to match in with that. So for example, if I grab my camera here, maybe there's a big bass hit. And you can see if there is because you can just look at your visualizer. You can keyframe here, move to where there's that big bass hit, change around a value. And there you go. You have some cool little camera effects that match in with that audio. And you guys can go back to your graph editor and here's those keyframes. So I think mine was Y rotation. Yep, there it is. You guys can click T and you can change these around to different sort of presets. Back, bounce, elastic. So yeah, you have some options here for some cool things you can do in camera as well. And that really will give you like the cherry on top whenever you're making these visualizers. You can do the same with zooming in. So right here, see there's a big hit. We'll take our location Y, keyframe it and find that in the graph editor. So here we go, location Y. Here's the keyframe. This is where the bump is. So we're gonna wanna crank that forward, keyframe, move a bit, and then you can just Control C, Control V to paste that keyframe. So you see we've created a little camera bump. That's what it looks like. just kind of emphasizes that a bit more. And again, that's why I say this is the cherry on top. And then you can select those keyframes, click T, and then give it any sort of dynamic effect or interpolation. So really cool. All right, guys, so that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below anything you'd like to see next from me. I apologize for the 2-week break. We haven't been sitting around doing nothing during that time. I'm working on a giant 3D After Effects cohesive plugin, the biggest plugin and project I've worked on. I really want to make this something that can provide value to you guys, even if you've never touched a 3D software before. Other than that, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you guys in the next one.